Hi, you're watching Investor Insights, and in this video I want to discuss stimulus a little bit. Stimulus is bad, plain and simple. Stimulus distorts free functioning markets. Stimulus doesn't serve any purpose whatsoever except blow up more speculative bubbles. Stimulus in history has never worked. Now, stimulus can take many forms, whether it be lower central bank borrowing rates or direct asset purchases in order to lower rates, such as the Fed's doing. It could just be handing out money, like the Australian government did 5 years ago. Just gave a few $1,000s to anyone. The only condition was that you had to fog up a mirror. And as I say over and over again, stimulus doesn't work. And stimulus causes a lot of market mispricing, especially with stocks and companies, because if I was to give you an example of how stimulus distorts company, especially their view of the economy, imagine a little restaurant in a quiet town, and this restaurant just goes about its business day in, day out, week in, week out, so forth, so forth. Now, one day the circus comes to town, and oh my goodness, it's a big circus. This is a Cirque du Soleil thing, and man, it's a sellout. Every day people come from far away places and they just go to the circus and have a meal afterwards. This restaurant business is booming. The owner's scratching his head. He's going, wow, business has really picked up. Oh man, I should do something about it. But there's one thing about this owner, and you can look at him as any investor out there or any lemming out there, is that he doesn't realize that the circus is in town. All he sees is his balance sheet's looking great. Things are looking good. There's a lot of business coming through. So what this guy does is he decides to rent out the adjoining properties next to him. There's empty shop fronts, and now he's got a huge restaurant business. Just break down the walls, put more tables and chairs. You know how it goes. And business just flourishes. And then, unfortunately, all good things come to an end. The circus has to move on. And now this poor bastard's just there scratching his head going, why is business gone away? What's going on? I mean, it was all good 1 second and now it's gone up the crappers. Now, the circus was a head fake. His business was running all the same, at the same rate, for all this time, but the circus blinded this guy. He didn't see that the circus was the main driver of his growing business, or the fact that his business exploded. But now that the circus is gone, this guy's stuffed because he's got to pay 3 lots of rent as opposed to 1. And now he's got to fire people, the extra people that he hired to work in the restaurant. He's got all these tables and chairs that he overcapitalized on. I mean, this guy is now in a really tragic state. And the moral of this story is, don't get blindfolded by external events. You got to see them coming, staying and leaving. Now, that restaurant was the American economy. The circus is quantitative easing. This quantitative easing is going to keep this restaurant going with the American economy going, until such times as inflation destroys, the quantitative easing measures bring so much inflation that it has to stop, and the circus has to leave. And then the restaurant, with all of its overinvestments, malinvestments into expansion, is going to get flushed down the toilet, and there's going to be huge losses. This is a tragic story. But it's not just a story, it's actually reality. And if you want to look at another example of this circus coming to town and a business rapidly expanding to accommodate all this extra business, is the mining sector in Australia. You have the big circus, technically was all the quantitative easing measures from America, which drove up demand, which then led to a lot of orders coming into China, and Chinese demand for Australia's mineral resources just escalated and exploded. So companies like BHP and Rio, unfortunately, overcapitalized, and just like the restaurant, they took over or bought assets from other companies. They try to grow, they try to expand their balance sheets. They wanted basically a larger slice of the pie. But guess what? That story's come to a tragic end again. China, being the circus, is leaving town, or is slowing down big time. Only 2 shows a week instead of 7. And now you see these Australian resource companies now shedding assets because mineral prices have fallen so much that the cost of production isn't there. So what's the point of running unprofitable businesses? Best to pawn them off to other suckers. And you're seeing that reflected in their share price. So the moral of this story is that you've got to pay attention to circuses when they come to town. Stimulus, although good temporarily, is bad in the long term.